Welcome back to another podcast with Mr. Hagan. On this podcast, we are just going to shift gears a little bit here. We're not going to be focusing a lot on, in fact, we're not going to draw any graphs on this podcast. We are going to focus on what are called the determinants of demand and the determinants of supply. Now, on the previous videos, we have been shifting a lot of curves. In fact, let's just go back and look at them real quickly. We've been shifting curves on these. So we had the demand shift to the right and supply shift right, or supply go left. All these increased demand, decreased supply things. And we did that also when we shifted both curves. But we never did say why curves shift in the first place. And that's what we want to look at on this video. Why do curves actually shift in the first place? And they shift because of what are called determinants of demand. And let's just kind of say what these are. Determinants of demand are the things that determine the location of the demand curve. It determines whether the demand curve is far out to the right or into the left, whatever the case might be, which another way of saying that same thing is determinants of demand are the things that cause the demand curve to shift. They are the things that we used to be holding constant and now we are allowing them to change. And that's all. Maybe I'm being a little bit confusing. These are all just confusing ways of saying that determinants of demand are just the things that cause demand curves to shift. They are the things that cause demand curves to shift. And there are 5 determinants of demand that we are going to look at. Some textbooks will have 6 or 7. We're just going to focus on the main 5 determinants of demand, and they are called change in taste and preference, change in consumer income. Taste and preference, that's people just like something more or less. Consumer income, that's pretty obvious. Their income went up or down. Change in the number of consumers in a market, that people move into an area or out of an area. Change in the price of related goods, and there are 2 types of related goods that we will talk about, and we'll do all this later. They are called substitutes and complements. Just very quickly, substitutes are goods that get consumed in place of each other, and complements are goods that get consumed together, and we will again say that all more clearly when we draw some graphs in some future videos. And then finally, there's what we call change in expectations, when people expect things to happen in the future, and the specific expectations that we will focus on are expectations of future prices and future income. So those are all the demand determinants. Now, there are also supply determinants, so let me just take a quick look at those. The supply determinants, well, first of all, it's all the same that I just said about the demand side. They determine the location of the supply curve. They are the things that shift the supply curve. They are the things that we are holding equal, and when we let them change, they shift the supply curve. So all that, again, is a confusing way of saying that determinants are the things that shift the supply curve. Again, there are 5 of them on the supply side, and again, some textbooks have more or fewer determinants, but we're going to focus on 5. They are changes in resource prices. We know what resources are. We remember that. They are land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurial skills. So those are the inputs that we use to produce to supply goods and services. Change in technology used to produce the good or service. Change in the number of suppliers. So are there more grocery stores opening up, or are grocery stores closing? That would change the number of suppliers. Change in expectations of future prices. What do suppliers think prices are going to do in the future? And finally, a change in the price of other goods that they could have produced. So maybe I'm producing pickup trucks, and I could have produced minivans, and so that would be another good that I could consider producing that will affect the supply of the good I'm currently producing. So these are just the lists of the determinants of demand and determinants of supply. They are worth writing down. They are worth knowing what they are. But our real focus is what we're going to start to do in the next video, which is to look at how these determinants how these determinants of supply or determinants of demand, how do they interact with our supply and demand model. So we will take a look at that on the next video. Thanks for joining me. This has been Mr. Hagan. See you on the next podcast.